Hey everyone, welcome back to the Miraculous Mamas podcast. I'm your host, Elizabeth Joy, and we believe in empowering people through storytelling and education. We also believe in having fun. I feel like lately that's been something that's been trying to be back in my life after the episode with Rada on joy. I'm still thinking about it. I feel like I'm going to go back and listen to it this week because so much of what she said is what I needed to hear. Just bringing joy into my life, dancing, having fun, doing the things that I enjoy. And it's hard sometimes to find that balance between like, hey, I should probably dust and vacuum and do the laundry, and have a dance party and, make dinner and work. So, just having fun is important. I hope that everyone is enjoying December. Guys, we're in December. Oh, this year is almost over. It's almost 2022. Wild. Fun random fact about me. I feel like I never get used to writing what year it is until like the year's over halfway over. But this year it was so easy for me to write 2021, like right at the beginning. I think I was ready for 2020 to be over. So I was just like, hey, it's 2021, like right at the beginning. So that is going to be coming up soon. If you missed last week's episode, definitely go back and listen to it. We have on Britta, who is a pediatric physical therapist. We talk all about milestones and her whole program, Instagram, website. Everything is called Progress Through Play. And she just has so many amazing tips on there. And it was just really great to talk to her, just to kind of ease your mind as a parent and also to simplify things. I feel like we sometimes complicate stuff, and she kind of told us like, hey, you don't need to put these things on your registry. Basically, you just need to do these couple of things for your baby to make sure that they're developing. And it was just a really good conversation. So make sure that you go follow her on Instagram. So this last week, let's see, when did we get home? We got home this last Wednesday from a 10-day road trip. We drove down to Texas to be with my family. And we took Jovi and Hutch with us. And the way down, we ended up just to do it in a straight shot. So with no stops, it's like a 14 and a half hour. It's like a 14 and a half hour drive. It took us about 16 hours. We stopped like 45 minutes for breakfast. We stopped, half hour for lunch, and then a couple other quicker stops. And I am pretty impressed with how everything went. On the way down, Jovi did start to lose it the last few hours. I did spend some time just with my boobs dangling over her car seat. And toward the end, I didn't blame her because we decided to wake up at 4:30 in the morning to like get going early. Or we decided to leave at 4:30. We're like, so Jovi will sleep the first few hours in the car and that'll be nice. She didn't sleep, guys. We got her up, put her in the car seat. She didn't sleep at all. She ended up taking one 20-minute nap in the morning and one 20-minute nap in the afternoon. And that was it. And we got to my sister's house at like 8 p.m. So I am very impressed with how she did for not sleeping and being in the car all day. And then once we were there, she adjusted pretty quickly. And we had a couple of rough nights. I think just like one. But she also, while we were gone, she got 3 teeth on this trip and that poked through. And she did awesome. And then on the way back, we decided to break it up. We drove a little over halfway the first day, and we stopped in Springfield to see my friend Lindsay, which was way too quick of a stop and see. So we're going to plan a trip back to hang out with her and her husband and kids. And then we stayed, like I said, a little over halfway. And Jovi did great on that drive. I think all in all, it was like 8 hours. And then the next day we drove 6.5 hours home. And the last 2 hours were rough. But we made it. So I feel like out of the 30 some hours we drove, only a few hours were really tough, and she did awesome. I think lots of snacks is really important. And we stopped doing bottles. I had bottles like on the way down. And then once we got there, she never really asked for one. And so I just kind of stopped giving her bottles. And since we've been home, she really hasn't asked. She like asked like once, like she goes, bow. And I'm like, you want some water? You want a snack? And I just kind of get her something else. So I feel like we might be done with bottles, which is a huge amen for me because for some reason I just despise washing them. Bottles, pump parts, things like that. It's like the worst thing in the world to wash for me. So I'm grateful if we're done with that. That's like one less thing, to worry about, to pack, to spend money on. Oh my gosh. So yeah, it was fun though. It was really fun being down with my family. My sister and her husband live on 8 acres. So Hutch was in heaven, just running around. And we just had a lot of fun connecting with family. Jovi's older cousins loved dressing her up in different costumes. And she just kind of had constant entertainment. So it was a good trip. It's nice to be with family, and just with the pandemic and the seasons of life that I've been in, having kids, I don't get to see my sister and her family as much as I'd like to. Like we just saw them over Thanksgiving. My sister will come out in March after I have the baby, but I don't know when I'm going to see her kids again. Like when I'll fly down there or anything. So probably not till summer. So that's a long time. It's a very long time. So yeah, it was great to be able to spend time with them. And I hope that you guys enjoyed maybe some time off from work, time with family, eating good food, and all of that. So we're going to dive into today's episode. I have on Gina Fontaine, and she she believes in like enjoying having fun in your body, moving in a way that feels good for you, and reclaiming your superpower and thriving as a mom. And her story is really cool, and I just love my conversation with her. So we are going to dive into that. All right, everyone, I have Gina Fontaine here, and I'm excited to talk to her because she just wrote this awesome book called You Are a Super Mom. And in the book, she addresses 5 mom myths, which are unrealistic expectations, which I'm sure we all have experienced, and nearly impossible standards that most moms feel that they have to live up to. As well as sustainable real-world ways to bust through those myths. And Gina just believes that every mom owes it to herself and her family to not live from a place of total sacrifice and to be the happiest, healthiest version of herself. So I'm super excited to talk to her because I feel like that's kind of the constant battle and balance that we're trying to find, because I feel like the season of life I am in is very sacrificial, and trying to find make sure that like I'm finding joy and filling my cup can be really hard to do sometimes. So thank you so much for coming on the podcast, Gina. And I'm really excited to talk to you today.
Yeah. Thank you, Elizabeth. It's a pleasure to be here. And you are in that stage of life. Your daughter's 1, correct?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah. I mean, that's just, they don't have any real sense of boundaries at that age, and try as you might to set your boundaries. Sometimes you just have to shut yourself away when they're napping and really commit to that time. And I know when my kids are now teenagers, so that's a whole different season of life. But I very dearly remember those days when they were young and, always wanted your attention.
Mm-hmm. Well, like you said, I mean, your kids are teenagers, and I feel like just even now, my sister-in-law, like her kids are getting a little bit older, like 8 and 7 and whatever, and they're just constantly busy. It's running from practice, like school to practice to this to a game on the, like, and I'm like, holy crap, like, I would love for my kids to be involved in stuff, but this just seems so stressful. Like, when do you get a break? Like, I'm like, you're literally a chauffeur. You're like a chef, a chauffeur. And it's like, where, like, is this just like the chaos of family life anymore? Like, I don't know.
Well, yeah, and you bring up some good points, and can I expound on that?
Absolutely.
Just where I come from. I at a certain point decided, when the kids were in those ages where they could potentially all 3 be in activities, and especially when I became a single mom, I had to say, this quarter is yours. And then, the next quarter is for the next kid, because I knew my limits. And to me, it's more important that I feel good and that I'm giving from a full place than I think where we've landed as moms is this idea that we have to be the chauffeur and we have to be the team mom and do it all. And the reality is like the myths that I talk about in my book, they have their origins in, like the 50s and 60s, when most women weren't working jobs outside of the home. And it was that, kind of perfect persona that was projected. But now we've moved into a different time when women are stretched in many different directions. And we really have to rethink what's realistic for us, because I just see too many women. I'm in my 40s and they're already displaying symptoms of chronic disease. And it tells me that we're being worn down in this process of trying to be the perfect mom who does it all.
Yeah. All right. We're going to take a quick break to talk about BetterHelp. You guys know I'm a big advocate for taking charge of your mental health, for getting outside counseling. I know it's great to have family and friends, but it's also really important to talk to somebody who's not emotionally attached to your specific situation. And I feel like in motherhood, there's a lot of emotions, a lot of opinions, a lot of outside noise. So being able to talk to a counselor, a licensed professional, at least for me, is so valuable and so important, which is why I love BetterHelp. They have licensed professional counselors who specialize in anger, depression, stress, anxiety, relationships, sleeping, trauma, grief, just so many different topics. And everything you share is always confidential. And the other thing I like about them is that I don't have to leave my house. I've mentioned before, I've gone to counseling several times, and it's always so awkward going and sitting in an office, like waiting for them to come get you. And you're in there with other people. And it's just really nice to be able to do it from the comfort of my home and to do it in a way that I feel comfortable. I can FaceTime, text, email, not FaceTime, like set up a video chat, depending on whatever I'm feeling, and to set that up and how I feel comfortable. And so many people are using BetterHelp because they're amazing that they are recruiting additional counselors in all 50 states. And I want you guys to start living a happier life today. And as a listener, you'll get 10% off your first month by visiting betterhelp.com/mamas. And you can join over 1 million people taking charge of their mental health. Again, that's BetterHelp, HELP.com/mamas. I feel like I was telling my husband, I recently took a trip to go visit some friends because I moved away from where I lived for a really long time. And I was like, I didn't realize how like every single one of my friends is like a working mom with like a career. And I have a few that are stay-at-home moms, which I'm able to stay at home. Most of the time I have a little bit of work here and there with my doula stuff and then podcast stuff. But no matter what you're doing, it's work, right? But I'd say the majority of my friends have careers, and I'm like, man, like, how do you... There is kind of this messaging of you can do it all. And I think that can be damaging. But also we don't live in community like we used to. Like, I feel like when I was growing up, we carpooled all the time with other people. Like, hey, you're taking this kid to practice so that my mom could stay home and cook dinner. You know what I mean? Or whatever it was. And now I see all my friends running their kids to every single thing instead of like catching a ride with somebody else. And that like already like overwhelms me. I'm like, I can't, how do you like get off work, get your kid, drive them to practice, like do the, like, I'm like, oh my gosh, it just sounds like so much.
Yes. And again, it's a choice, and we can choose to do that or not. And bicycling and walking, like I was the youngest of 10 children. And now, granted, my mom had a lot more time with me because a lot of the other kids were driving, and we had that resource that, an older brother could take me places. But it was oftentimes I lived the furthest from school, a mile. It seemed like forever to walk a mile, but I walked home pretty much every day. We had this little caravan of kids that one by one we'd drop off, and I was the last one because I lived furthest. And I'm sure it made me stronger. I mean, it definitely kept my body healthy. I didn't always like it, especially if it was a cold day. But and then, riding your bike. I mean, you want to go to the pool. I can remember riding my bike across some of the busiest streets in Indianapolis where I grew up. And I thought, gosh, was my mom nuts sending me out on my bike like that? But I did it. And and as a result, when I was in 8th grade and I was able to babysit a family, they felt comfortable with me, taking them by bike to the pool because I'd done it so many times before. So it's that we sometimes forget that we're raising adults, as parents, and that helicopter hover attachment style parenting that was really in vogue when I was raising my children as babies. I look now at, as they're teenagers at what they learned, and maybe I misinterpreted it because my first one had my attention at the first fall or anything he needed. I was right there. But as more kids entered into the mix, and by baby 3, it was like, oh yeah, you're fine. And, we forget that part of building resiliency is even when they're 3 and little ones and they fall, it's kind of like pause and see how they are. Because sometimes it's our reaction as a parent that they're reacting to our, oh my gosh, are you okay? And the thing I've learned is the falls are a lot harder the older they get. So if they can learn to deal with the little boo-boos and scratches as toddlers, then that builds up the tank of resiliency so that when they're older and there's heavy peer pressure to do much more risky things, they have that sense of fortitude of, I can do this.
Right.
And I won't say I failed, but I learned, and I call my oldest son my greatest teacher because he pushed every boundary that a kid could possibly push. So if you're a parent of a tween or teen that are approaching those good old rebellious years, that's, my book talks a lot about my learning journey as a parent, that it's, I was kind of raised with the authoritarian, my way or the highway, you do it or else. And it doesn't work so well with these teens today. They're very, very savvy. Teenagers today are like, they're on the internet. They can research things. They can figure it out in a moment if it's truth or if it's myth. And so it's almost like a whole new approach to parenting that I'm finding now is more connection based, of the stronger connection. That's what becomes really important as they approach those tween and teen years, is how well are you connected with them and engaged with their life, instead of being that, that person, the taskmaster who says, you need to do this, you need to do that. But that's not what they want at that age.
Yeah. You brought up attachment parenting earlier, and I feel like there's so many, like even now, I feel like I know a lot about birth as a birth doula, things like that. But when it comes to like parenting, my husband and I are both like, man, like we're pretty clueless. And I feel like we have a benefit being the youngest in our family. So like on my side alone, I have 12 nieces and nephews. He has 5. And so watching our siblings do things, we don't like tell them, but like we talk about it. And we're like, I like how they do this, and I don't like how they do that, type thing. But even there's just so much information. Like I have so many different parenting books, and I feel like sometimes there's like the overwhelm of information. And I think that each different style, there's probably really good takeaways and things that you can use, but not, I mean, everybody can agree that certain things aren't ethical or good, right? But when it comes down to it, it's like, are you providing a safe, loving, secure environment for your children to grow up in? It's like, those are the foundations. Are you feeding them? Do they have a safe, secure place to eat, like to sleep, to be, and, after that, it's like, man, some things, and then you can what we've learned from our siblings too, is it's like, you think that this is working great and it works great for one kid, then you have this other kid that throws everything out the window.
Yep.
My sister has one kid that I even remember one time, she was just so sensitive. If you just gave her a look, she would start crying. One time she was doing something and I was like, Brooklyn, no. And she just started bawling. I'm like, oh my gosh, what did I do? And then there's another kid that it doesn't matter what you say or do or anything. They're going to do what they want, So it's there's so much information out there. And I feel like that's also where the motherhood thing gets so hard, because in most families, the mother is the default parent. And so a lot of this falls on you, and then you're trying to make these decisions and trying to do the best you can. And at the end of the day, it's like, crap, I'm tired, parenting is tough.
Can I read a quote from my book? Cause you said something about the books and I thought, oh, this is the perfect quote right here. And I actually had this epiphany when I was writing. I wrote this: if I had spent as much energy taking care of myself as I did reading books and attending classes in those early days of motherhood, I may have saved myself from countless hours of crying and feeling like I was losing my mind. And so what you say about me, my bedside was full of how to get your baby to sleep books. Right. And I would try a new method every week. And in retrospect, I think, babies and toddlers, kids for that matter, they have these little radars, and they're mommy radars, and they feel you. And so if you're just tired or frustrated or angry, they feel it even before you say your first word for the day. I don't know how it is, but they do. And so the more, if I had spent that time reading books and crying because I couldn't get it right, if I had just spent it going to a yoga class or doing something nourishing for myself, I'm sure I would have showed up a more healthy, whole, complete mom. And that the kids they feel that. Everyone feels that, instead of a flustered and exhausted mom. And it's almost become like a cultural norm to be the flustered, stressed out mom. That's just kind of what we associate, especially after the fun year that we had when many of us were working from home, and we had to manage being a teacher and a babysitter and doing our jobs all at the same time. And that's what inspired, the release of this book. I just thought, I can't be the only mom in the world that has this feeling like I've done it all wrong. And the funny thing about my book is my original title was I Am Not a Super Mom, because I thought, I failed this motherhood gig. And then it was in the process of writing and really seeing how I met my imperfections and failures with a sense of, how can I learn from this? That was what made it super, was that instead of crushing in on myself and feeling like, woe is me, I used it as a platform to rise. And we all have that capability of rising above our challenges instead of letting them crush us and falling underneath them and becoming that victim.
Right. I feel like you brought up such a good point. I mean, how many people listening to this could say to themselves, I am a super mom? That's hard. I feel like I fail daily, I'm like, I should have organized the toy room while she was napping, or, I wanted dinner to be ready by 5 and it's 6 and I'm just getting it out. And, whatever it is, it's we're so hard on ourselves.
Yes, we do. And then that doesn't help us at all. That self-criticism, it just brings us down. And so I want to take a second to say that I'm redefining supermom. And I think what the traditional supermom, and I talk about it in my book, is that woman who she works, she shuffles the kids to practice, she comes home, cooks dinner, and the house is always clean. And that's those unrealistic expectations. And what I'm calling a supermom is that woman that can embrace her fullness, embrace and love the good, the bad, the beautiful, the ugly, all of it, because every experience that we have in life as a mother, as a spouse, a friend, daughter, it all contributes to the whole picture of who we are. And when we start, I think as moms, especially, we start to see our kids' behavior as a reflection of how well did I do? It's kind of like the report card comes back when your kid enters into the world. And when my son started failing out of school and skipping classes and doing drugs, I just thought, oh man, I have failed the motherhood gig, and in a big way. And in the end, the biggest lesson that I learned was that I can still love myself, and I have to love myself, because each child has their journey to come here and experience, and he's on his journey. And so the most loving thing that I can do is, now that he's 18, is put my hands up and just say, I'm here. If you need a soft place to land, I'm here. But I'm not going to tell you what to do, and I'm not going to tell you how to do it anymore, because in the eyes of the law, he's an adult now, and he's doing it. He does. My oldest lives on his own now, so I can celebrate that.
Yeah, I feel like that's the other hard part too, though, is like because I feel like I was raised pretty well. Like my parents, I grew up in a very loving home. I never had anything like tragic or horrible happen to me. I knew what was right and wrong. And when I hit 20, I was just going to do what I wanted no matter what. And my parents just always loved me. They definitely did not approve of a lot of things I did. But they were always there for me no matter what, which meant a lot. But I just kind of had to like go on my own and make my own mistakes. And to me, I never wanted my parents to feel like they did a bad job, like that this was a reflection on them. Like, you guys screwed me up, which is why I'm doing these things now. Because that really wasn't true. Like I was a very rebellious spirit when I hit a certain age. And I feel like that's the other hard thing, because it'd be hard to like not be like, oh, my kid's like doing drugs and partying now. Like, where did I go wrong? Like, how did I screw up? And it's not necessarily you as a parent.
Right. And there's not a great guidebook for, again, I mean, I'm sure I could find a book out there on, when your kid goes down the wrong path and how to, and your inclination is to be a rescuer as a parent. Like, nobody wants to see their kid hurt or in dangerous situations. And again, it's part of the learning journey to know, like, when do I need to intervene here, and when do I need to ask for help? I mean, especially in a single mom household where there's not that other adult to fall back on. All those, I just found myself in decision fatigue, just always like not having anybody to consult with. Well, should I do this or that, or what's most effective? It was just always me relying on my intuition, and that it wears on. At least I'm a person that I like to process through other people, so that it just felt like a constant fatigue that I was going through.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I feel like in motherhood that there's decision fatigue just like every single day though.
Right,
just over little things. Like I know sometimes where I'm like, if we're going to like end up ordering food or something one night and I'm like, babe, like you pick it, because I just feel like I had to wake up this morning and be like, what am I going to make Jovi for breakfast? What am I going to make her for lunch? What am I going to make for dinner? What are we going to do today? It's just like the little things constantly that, you know, at the end of the week, I'm like, I just don't care. I don't want to decide anything else.
Right. Yeah. And it, you know, at a certain age, not necessarily when they're one, but, you know, like last night, my 11-year-old came to me, and it's getting colder at night, and he had bare feet and short sleeves. And he said, "What? I'm so cold, Mom." And I'm like, "What do you want to do about that?" You know, like you might want to change your clothes, get some blankets. Seasons are changing.
Right. Yeah, for sure. So tell us a little bit more about your book. I know you talk about the 5 myths in there. I feel like that there's so many things that we are told as moms that aren't necessarily true that we buy into.
Yeah. And there are also things like myth number 2 is moms are nasty multitaskers. And yes, we are. And there's a lot of positive feedback that we get, because when we multitask, it just feels so good when you can check those things off your list and feel a sense of accomplishment. And yet, physiologically, our brain really can't, and that's verified by science, it cannot focus on more than one meaningful task at a time. And so we actually become more productive when we just, you know, focus on a meaningful task, meaning like, you know, watching a webinar and writing a blog post at the same time. Those are 2 meaningful tasks. You can be, you know, helping your child do something and, you know, pushing them on a swing and talking to a friend. That's, you know, but interestingly, I was out with a friend last night, and she's got a 15-month-old and is just starting to go back to the workplace where she's been working remotely. And she said, "Oh my gosh, I realized how addicted to multitasking I've become in the last year, because I used to be able to have my phone on one side and my other computer, and I'd be doing literally 3 things while we were on a conference call, and I'd turn off my video camera." And she's like, "I'm sweating in the conference room because I can't like multitask." And I've, you know, it's like she is realizing this mode. And I'm wondering how many people out there got into that mode of, you're on a Zoom conference call. Well, nobody can see me, so I'll go ahead and answer these messages and, you know, do my Facebook feed all at the same time, where our attention is not directed. And then she commented, "And I just feel so fatigued and exhausted at the end of every day." Yeah. Well, no wonder when you're asking your brain to, you know, shift from task to task, it's very fatiguing. And I still, even though I wrote the book on this stuff, I have to be very, very conscious about turning things off and saying, you know, okay, right now is writing time, and I'm not going to check any notifications. But at the end of my 60 minutes of writing, I get to reward myself by going through my Instagram feed or, you know, something like that. So it's not, you know, every little notification goes off and you're, oh, I better answer that. And it's realizing, you know, there's things that seem urgent, but what's contributing to your mission and your, you know, top goal for the day. And if it's not, then can you have the discipline to just say that can wait? Right.
Mm-hmm. See, I don't feel like I am a great multitasker at all. If I was like on a Zoom call and doing other things, like I'm not listening to what's going on the Zoom call at all. I'm not like actually taking in any information. And I realize I do have to like block out time. Like that's the only way. Like if I'm trying to multitask, I feel like I get a tiny bit of things done, but not very well. Whereas like, yeah, if I just sit down, I'm like, okay, I'm going to write a blog for the next 60 minutes. But if during that time I check my Instagram and I'm checking my email and I'm getting distracted doing other things, it's going nowhere, right? Like it's, for me, it's more distraction, not multitasking. So like I have to focus on one task. Like the most multitasking I can do is like listening to a podcast while I'm cooking dinner, you know, like I can do that. Yeah. And that's like about it, because outside of that, I just realized I don't it actually ends up taking me way more time than if I just like sat down, focused, did this one thing and then moved on.
Yeah. And that's where, that the year of having our kids home from school, I'd be involved in writing something in my head is in, maybe I'm doing something on pelvic floor because I do pelvic floor work with women. And then my son comes in and asks me a question and I'll stare at him blankly like, okay, wait a minute, brain can't process that because I've been in, this world and he'll just be like, Mom, hello, are you there? But this became like an expectation when our kids were doing remote schooling. And if they had a question or something came up, I can't get my computer on. You're just constantly being asked to do something that our brain really isn't capable of doing. So I feel like a lot of women going back to the workplace are recovering, in a sense of, okay, how do I shift back to this more normal way of working where I go to work and I'm focusing and I'm not having to be mom and let the dog out and all the things
right.
that we.
Mm-hmm. So one thing that you talk about too is finding joy in movement, which I love. Also that you have like a meditative dance experience, which is really cool. Because I realize that that's something that does bring me joy in my life. And it's something that I've put like on the back burner, just being a mom and being pregnant and like tired. But then I always feel so much better when I do it. But there is joy in movement. And I'd love for you to talk about that.
Yeah, I have been a mover my whole life. I mean, I grew up with 6 brothers, so it was always, hey, come play baseball, come play basketball. And so I don't know life without movement. So it was very natural for me to go get a degree in exercise science. And I've been a personal trainer for 27 years. And one thing that really stood out to me after a period of time working in gyms is not very many people are smiling. Like it's like they go to do their job. And my job is I get on the treadmill for 30 minutes and then I go do the weights. And I love teaching group exercise because I'd be the instructor and I could set the vibe. And you do see a lot of smiles. And I think group exercise tends to bring out the more socially inclined people. What it comes down to ultimately is I never want to be, the person handing an exercise prescription over and saying, here, this is what you have to do. Because especially when we become time-strapped moms, it's just a little tiny bit of movement that you enjoy can set the tone for your day to be like the sense of I matter. And I actually am just coming off of a 10-day challenge that I did with my Super Mom Club. And we simply got up at 6:30 a.m. And that was a challenge for me too, to be camera ready at 6:30 in the morning, but 10 minutes. That's all we did was 10 minutes. And I've tried in the past doing 30 minutes or 45 minutes and attendance just quickly dropped off. But I actually had some good, strong followers because they felt the benefit of only 10 minutes of movement and mindful movement, not check out and, think about other things, but really directing your attention to your body with love. And I'm just loving the feedback that I'm getting from women who really dove in and experienced it, that it's amazing how just that starting point as you go throughout your day and you remember how peaceful I was at 6:30 in the morning. That's what I want. And that is a very small investment in time for a huge payout through your day.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I definitely notice a difference when I take my daughter and my dog for a walk in the morning versus like, if I'm like, I'm going to do it later this afternoon, then the day usually gets busy. It ends up like not happening. And I just feel so much better just getting the fresh air. I mean, there's tons of scientific research behind just like getting fresh air in the morning, and being outside in the morning. So I'm trying to do that more, but you're definitely right. I mean, you can kind of remember it. It sets the tone for the day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And one thing, I mean, having been a fitness professional for 27 years, I realized that if I didn't have that background, I would be so intimidated walking into a gym, seeing a room full of equipment, or looking at a class schedule and seeing like there's 20 different classes to choose from. What do I do? And so I feel like we just need to kind of simplify and narrow it down and discover, here's my personality. And this is one thing I love to do is, really dive in and say, what's your personality? I have a supermom quiz. Like, are you a goddess? Are you a queen? Are you an activist? And now let's match you up with the movements that make you feel that goddess or that queen that's in you, because the distractions and demands of life can really collapse on us, and we start to forget who we are.
Yeah.
And I love how movement just instantly brings me to the moment. And it's also a way to just clear a passageway of whatever emotion is there. And I love to reference emotions. It's just energy and motion. Mm-hmm. So maybe I'm feeling angry. Okay, it's time to get the tennis racket out and just go crush some balls on the tennis court for 15 minutes and move that energy out so it can become something that's productive and useful for me.
Mm-hmm. That's good. Where is that quiz at? Is it in your book or on your website?
It's soon to be published. I'm actually working on it right now. I'm so excited. So it will be, yes, on my website available. So you can find out what your supermom persona is.
Yeah. Tell me about the Supermoms Club, because you said you were getting together with the Supermoms Club. What's that?
Yeah. So the Supermom Club is, it's online fitness for the time-strapped mom. And so we'll meet, I'm going to continue the 10 minutes inside. So the challenge was outside the Supermom Club, but inside I just thought, you know what, this has been so great. I want to keep it going. So the 10-minute morning movement. And then we'll have 3 group fitness classes a month that we meet live. But I am also going to be creating a catalog where you can go in and select a movement experience based on your mood. Like, okay, I just need to chill out. Then you might find, like, I teach restorative yoga. I'm like, I'm going to do this little restorative sequence. Or I need to energize. I have a big interview coming up. And so here's my 10-minute energy burst. Mm-hmm. And then I will be, I have themes for each month. So like November's theme is pelvic power and how to tap into your feminine strength through your hips. And then I have guest experts. So I'll have a pelvic floor physical therapist talking about all the fun stuff that happens to us as moms that we really need to be talking about, because our bodies change after we have babies. I hear so many women say it. I don't feel like myself anymore. But we can reclaim our strength. It's just not necessarily in the go to the gym-based strength training. It's very specific. And that's something I pursued after I had my 3rd child, and I just had severe back pain and incontinence, and I took it upon myself to do my own research. And it wasn't 11 years ago. There wasn't a lot of information out there about postpartum fitness and recovery. Right. But now there's certification programs, and I did a postpartum corrective exercise certification training. And in healing my own body, I was so excited. I just said, oh my gosh, I have to share this with all the moms, because it can be one of those, unspeakables, like, oh my gosh, do you pee when you run? Oh my gosh, do you dribble a little when you sneeze? And yeah, these things happen, but don't let anybody tell you it's normal, because it can be changed, and usually the solutions are fairly simple.
Mm-hmm. It's common, but not normal.
It's right. That's a better way to put it. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a huge fan of pelvic floor therapy. I started it when I was 20 weeks pregnant with my daughter, and did it until she was 6 months old. So I did it for like a year. And then now with this pregnancy, I'm finding that I need it again. I just feel so much weaker this time around. than I did when I was pregnant with my daughter, Jovi. So I'm like, I need to start doing my pelvic floor therapy exercises again and doing that stuff back. I told my husband the other day, I'm like, remind me throughout the day to engage my core and, just to do different things. Cause I forget now, just chasing around a 1-year-old and, I'm not working out the way that I did when I was pregnant with her. So, those exercises definitely made a difference. I'm a huge fan of pelvic floor work.
Yeah. And good for you for getting on that. One little tip that I share with my women is have a cue, like every time you pick up your water bottle and drink, like, do 10 Kegels or do a deep breath, something that's simple, but it's like sticking your walking shoes by the front door to remind yourself, oh yeah, I'm going to go walk today.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. What are 1-minute wellness solutions?
They are quick, easy to do things to pick you up. And it might be a movement, it might be getting up and doing a Tai Chi swirl, or it might be simply having an arrangement of flowers and saying, you know what, I'm going to just spend 1 minute and rearrange the flowers. And it lifts you. And the idea is that throughout the day, you're having these 1-minute experiences of maybe it's getting up out of your desk chair and stretching, or when I walk up the stairs, I tend to like lunge up the stairs and make it a stretching experience. So how can you love on yourself for just 1 minute? And I feel like if you just start doing something for 1 minute or 5 minutes, it can start to have a snowball effect. So when it feels too overwhelming, to go out and go to the gym, for instance, just do some, 1 minute of looking at yourself in the mirror and saying, I love you, and saying it over and over again.
Yeah. I love that. So tell us a little bit more about the different programs that you have or the different coaching that you do.
Yeah. So with the Supermom Club, that's more of the group experience, but I call myself a movement magician because I love to help people get out of that, especially moms, out of that place of, I feel so disconnected from my body. But we talked earlier about how every body has different needs and you have different desires. So I do a magic movement design intensive where I really sit down with you and do a movement assessment and a needs and desires evaluation of how can we create, like if we were creating our ideal movement meal and you were going to eat it and just love every bite of it, what would that look like so that exercise and fitness wasn't like a should, but it became I get to, I'm so excited. And then I also do group experiences, group classes like Mama Core Restore, for instance, is a 6-week series of classes to progressively help women get restoration in their pelvic floor and abdominals after having babies. And it's interesting how I've even worked with women who are like 10, even 20 years postpartum. And if you never did that work, you can actually become weaker and weaker. So this even applies to moms of older children as well. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like it's even like my parents' generation that talk about all their pelvic floor issues because it just like wasn't a thing back then. And just fitting like making sure that like you're moving your body, even though like you're busy with kids and stuff, just like wasn't as much of a thing back then. So yeah. I know like one thing I'm trying to do to like just get back into it. It's like, like while I brush my teeth, I can do squats, like just, I'm like, I just need to do some squats. Even just like that makes me feel better. Like, I have a timer on my toothbrush. It's 2 minutes.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, those minutes add up throughout the day. You're waiting for your kids to come out of school. You can take, a lap around the school or a lap around the block and it all adds up. And at the end of the day, it's not how much we do, it's how we feel. And a supermom, it claims her feelings and not, you know, at the end of the day, if you can say, I feel great, I feel like that's a super mom instead of look at all that I did. That's,
right.
How did you feel after you did all that? Oh, I was just depleted and exhausted. And then I got sick for 2 weeks. Well, that's not so great because you can't be of service to your children if you're lying in bed or if you're exhausted. And I was there. I mean, when you're exhausted, your temper flares and it's hard to have control. And I slipped into reactive mode and then it takes time to unravel your wound up nervous system. And it's taken, you know, years for me to, like that trigger button, you know, something triggers you and then it's like instant eruption. And now I have so much better control over, is this worth, this is the question I ask, is this worth losing my peace for? And oftentimes the answer is no, it's not.
Right, for sure. I feel like kind of taking ownership of that peace is really important. Mm-hmm. Which can be hard sometimes.
It is, yes.
Before we wrap up, I'd love for you to tell people where they can find you, connect with you, and where they can buy your book at.
Yeah. My website is Gina Fontaine, GinaFontaine.com. And the book is available on both Amazon and Barnes and Nobles. There's both print and e-versions of the book. And the Supermom Club is, you know, on a rolling basis open for enrollment. So I can provide a link where moms can check that out and see if having quick, easy access to fitness is something that seems appealing. And I just have a huge passion for moms. I know that you're all busy and I hear it all the time. Oh, I don't have enough time to do this, but you know, the thing I want to leave moms with is like when you take those small snippets of time for yourself, it gives you so much more that you can arrive at your desk for the day and you're just so much more prepared mentally, physically, and emotionally. Mm-hmm. And, you know, as a fitness instructor, a lot of people point to me and say, well, yeah, it's your job. Like you're active all the time. But I had this harsh realization at a certain point that I was always teaching a class and I was always giving from my bucket. And I'd like be like, why am I so cranky when I come home at night? Because when you're giving and teaching to other people, you're not filling yourself up. And so I've been a lot more intentional and my body gave me a knee injury and surgery over the summer for me to really spend some time on understanding on a deeper level what truly self-love and self-care looks like. And that's a big theme within my book and within the Supermom Club, is nurturing that really positive relationship with yourself. It's kind of like, can you love and embrace yourself with the same amount of love that you do your own children? And, you know, that's where we want to get with ourselves. It's like in those moments when you're frustrated, crying and overwhelmed, can you give yourself that hug and be your own best mother and friend?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's hard.
Yeah. Again, it's like, oh yeah, I wrote a book, but I read my own book and I realize that there's a lot of wisdom in there and we actually teach what we need to learn the most.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Well, thank you so much for coming on. I will include all the links in the show notes. And thank you so much, Gina, for just taking time out of your day to come on and to share with us today.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
I had such a fun conversation talking with her, and I actually got her pregnancy guidebook, her Power of Pregnancy Exercise Guide. And it's really cool because it's more than just exercise. There's even like connecting with your partner and knowing when to work out and when to rest and just really being in tune with your body. And it's really cool. I'm excited to start it. I've been finally feeling like I can work out again. This pregnancy has been really rough on me in lots of different ways. And I have been going on walks, but then my sciatica will like be crazy. And I'll be limping and whatever, but I'm starting physical therapy and I feel like things are just getting better and I'm excited to like move my body a little bit more, work out a little bit more because birth is no joke. You are training for a marathon. They say that you burn the same amount of calories like birthing as like going on like a 28-mile hike. So I need to do some leg strength, some core strength. I've been doing my pelvic floor exercises again, just because with my acid reflux, I like burp up and sometimes like throw up things and then I'll pee my pants a little bit. So I'm like, I need to get back to doing pelvic floor. And since I started, I've only done it like a few times. It's helped tremendously. I think just activating your pelvic floor and being a part, like knowing how to fully engage and fully release, is so important. So, I'm excited to start some of these exercises and just, like I said, get back on it. Vito and I got a Peloton for Christmas. It was our gift to each other. And I'm excited to do some of the rides on there. So yeah, make sure you guys go follow Gina, check out her programs, and definitely connect with her. She's just a cool person. And also go back and listen to the last couple weeks of episodes. They were awesome with Rada and Britta, and even redecorating your nursery with Deborah. There was just so much information in all of those episodes. So make sure to go check it out. All right. Have a great week, everybody. I will talk to you next week. Reach out to me with any questions you have, anybody that you want to have on the podcast, any topics, people, anything like that. And if you're listening, make sure that you rate, subscribe, and share the podcast. That's the best way to grow our audience, to be seen, and to get, to grow our community and to make sure that the podcast is reaching the people who'd want to hear it. All right. Love you guys. Bye.
If you want to be the most interesting person at the cocktail party, well, hop on over and listen to the Brain Candy podcast.
Our award-winning content will have you laughing while you're learning.
We read all the best articles, books, and studies and keep up with new TV shows, documentaries, and pop culture. And then we cram it all into 2 shows a week.
Conspiracy theories, cannibal rabbits, unsolved mysteries, the history of the Walkman. There's something for everyone.
The Brain Candy podcast. Find our link in the show notes.
Or simply search for the Brain Candy podcast on your podcast app.